Hey, hello, and welcome back. And today, let's talk about drilling for oil.
Oil, that is, black gold, Texas tea.
Now, today I want to talk about drilling for oil and or natural gas. Typically, they're found together. They're both hydrocarbons. And I'm going to talk about two main types of oil and gas drilling, the two types of strategies for extracting those. And so those would be your conventional types and your unconventional types. The first thing I'm going to talk about is where does oil come from? Let's cover some basics. Where does oil come from? Oil and natural gas is generated from organic rich material that gets trapped into these rocks and buried. And over long periods of time, think millions of years, this material is slowly transformed into oil and gas. Now, whether or not it becomes oil or gas depends mostly on the heat and the pressure that's applied over that time. Now, the organic material, I'm not talking about dinosaur bones here, at least typically. What I'm talking about is mostly microorganisms, uh, things like plankton, forams, radiolarians, these really tiny microscopic organisms. And over a long period of time, this creates an organic rich sediment on the ocean floor that gets buried and finally transformed into oil and gas. So let's talk first about conventional oil. Conventional oil drilling has been around for over 100 years. It's the typical type of oil drilling when you think about oil wells and you think about oil shooting out the derrick, or you think about the Beverly Hillbillies oil shooting out of their backyard. This is the kind of oil that gets trapped. And so what I mean by that is that once oil and gas is generated underground, rocks actually have pore space. They have some space inside of them, especially rocks like sandstones, which are typically what we would call reservoir rocks. Anything that will stop the migration, some kind of formation that is has very little pore space, or there's very little room for it to move. That's what's known as conventional oil and gas drilling. Now, in those cases, you really have to understand the porosity, the amount of pore space that rock holds. You have to understand the migration pathway. You have to know the source rock. You have to know where the oil and gas is being generated and how it's moving through the system. You have to understand a lot of these things to get at that the best spots to drill for oil. And the other type of play that I want to talk about is unconventional. Instead of going after the traps, we go after the sources themselves. Now, these source rocks, they are full of organic material and hydrocarbons, but they don't have pore space. They don't have a lot of space inside them to store things. And so when you try to put a well into those to drain that material, it doesn't really want to come out. And so the technology advancement that made that possible is basically fracking or fracturing, hydraulic fracturing technology, and horizontal drilling. Now, these are pretty incredible feats of engineering. And in order to make unconventional plays work, you have to actually drill down there and you have to turn the wellbore 90 degrees and you have to drill horizontally through that source rock so that you're touching the maximum amount of source material. In unconventional drilling, there's much less risk because you know that the source rock is down there, you know where it is. And you don't have to worry so much about porosity, although it is a factor. It's more about just trying to drill them as efficiently as possible, and you can drill several of them close together, and you don't have to worry about them communicating or overlapping so that you're not getting as much for your money. So that it's much less risky to drill unconventional wells. As technology continues to advance, we will find more and more ways of extracting oil and natural gas from the ground. Post something in the comments if you'd like to see more about hydraulic fracturing, oil and gas drilling, or horizontal drilling.
Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed. Poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food.